Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have another brand new Mattel Jurassic World figure to take a look at. This is another basic figure, as we have ourselves the Herrerasaurus, and this one was a little tricky to find. You know, it actually had recently begun showing up at Kohl's stores, so if you happen to have a Kohl's near you, that's a good place to start looking. But online, it hasn't begun shipping from anywhere yet. However, I will, of course, if you are interested in grabbing this, don't feel like going to Kohl's, I'll include a link in the description to where you can actually pick this up on Big Bad Toy Store, as it isn't quite in stock yet, but should be soon. Regardless, again, definitely an exciting species choice, an interesting one, because it's a pretty, random species to get the basic treatment, but it seems like, for the most part, they're always just totally random figures and, stuff that we get in the basic line, so I'm not too surprised that we would have a Herrerasaurus, because we've had random ones like Concavinator and stuff in the past. Regardless, as far as the packaging goes, you can see these basic figures are always quite tall, so it's complicated to get it into screen if I actually stand it upright, so I have turned it on its side, and you can see the other figures that are in this wave with the Herrerasaurus, which is an Atrociraptor Velociraptor Blue, which has been in so many waves, it is unreal, and then of course a Pteranodon as well, all of which we have reviewed on the channel over the course of the last few years. Blue's been out forever, I think since Fallen Kingdom probably, and then the Atrociraptor obviously would be Dominion, and the Pteranodon, I can't quite recall, but it wasn't all that long ago. But regardless, I'm pretty interested to see this one in person, so let's pop the box open and check it out. So here is our Herrerasaurus, and I think we need to pull the camera up a little bit, but looking at this one, it's pretty rough. I was really hoping and keeping my fingers crossed that we would get a better tail for this one, because when it comes to this particular version of the Herrerasaurus, this sculpt, when it comes to the one that we've had in the main line, every single time I felt like the tail was way too short, which is, a common thing with Mattel, but the tail looks somehow even more ridiculously short on this one, and when you normally get these basic figures, a lot of the time they give you longer tails for your figure. However, this time the tail is just unbelievably short. I don't know why they did that with this one, because they could have definitely given us a much better looking version of a Herrerasaurus, and if the tail were longer, I feel like it really wouldn't have been that bad of a looking figure. Of course, the newer version they had come out with is definitely superior to this older one, but again, when you look at it, if you look at it, just from like the head back to here, it's not half bad. Definitely would have been nicer to have a longer tail. Regardless, it's pretty much as you would expect when it comes to a basic Mattel figure. Nothing super crazy, but it looks kind of cool. So let's go ahead and jump straight to a closer look at it right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of the Herrerasaurus, you can see it does have some very nice looking skin texture, really vibrant skin texture as well. It definitely pops on the sculpt. I would say it's some of the nicest fine detail I've seen on any Herrerasaurus figure from Mattel, and almost makes me want to get another one of these just to repaint, because I'd really like to see this with a more detailed paint job to it. But as you lead through the course of the face, you can see again the detail does have quite a bit of difference to it, different styles of scale detail and stuff as you move through. You've got the nostrils sculpted out. The mouth is sculpted in a closed position, which is pretty common when it comes to these basic figures. I don't know that one has ever had the mouth sculpted in an open position. I think they're always closed. And you can see the teeth are sculpted here, and they also have a satin shine to them, which is weird that they would go through the trouble of giving them that kind of satin shine but not go ahead and paint them. It really would have made the figure look nicer if they had actually painted it. But you can see the eye is painted with a yellow, and then there's like a slit-like pupil right there, very small slit-like pupil. The placement of the eye is actually pretty nice, and overall the head sculpt I think looks pretty good. You've got some really big rough and rugged scaling up here on the top of the head, which also looks quite nice, and of course a red tone for the majority of the body color. As we lead back here into the neck, you start to see some wrinkling and creasing there in the neck. The dinosaur has a slight, ever so slight turn to the head. You can also see we have some dark grays pick up here and kind of stripe and design here through, and that continues as you lead down through the course of the body, but disappears very quickly here as you reach like the mid-back area. So another one of those instances where Mattel was like, this is basic, so we're going to go super basic. But you can see as you move through, again, all sorts of very variation to the scale detail. You've also got some osteoderms poking up here and there. Nice muscle definition in the arm as you move down. The elbow's nicely sculpted out. I feel like the wrist looks broken for some reason right here. I don't know why it looks so awkward, but one thing that is nice is it's nice to see that the placement of the wrists is correct. We don't have pronated wrists or anything, which is a plus. The hand sculpts look okay, and again, no nail paint, but I really do not expect nail paint for a basic figure. If we can't get the teeth painted, we certainly are not going to get the nails painted. As you move up here into the stomach region a little bit further, you can again see more really nice looking skin texture, a little bit of like a pudge to the belly right there, so it's a fairly well fed version of the Herrerasaurus. And as we move back, we continue to have those much larger kind of rough and rugged scales running along the top of the dinosaur, and then they become finer and a little bit softer as you move down here to the side. Nice muscle definition in the thigh. You've got the kneecap right there, a little bit of a calf muscle as you move down, and as you move down a little bit further, you've got the foot sculpt, some pretty big nails. Again, no nail paint, but they do have a little bit of a satin shine similar to what we saw on the teeth of the Herrerasaurus. So interesting that they continue to again give them that shine but don't paint them. Definitely would have been nicer had they actually painted the nails. And then as we move back up, you can see we again lead out into the tail, and the tail is very small. You have more of those rough and rugged scales up here along the top, a little bit more osteoderms and stuff, and then finer scaling as you move down here to the side. Pretty much, the same style of detailing here, except once you reach the stomach, the skin texture looks a little bit different as you lead along there, and you're really not going to see much difference over here on the opposing side, again, except the head does have a slight turn away from us, which is actually pretty cool. The arms are in pretty much the same position, and the leg on this side is further forward more so than the opposing leg, so that's pretty much the only real difference. The tail does also curve away from us. As far as the articulation goes, you have articulation in the arms, only forward and back. Same deal for the legs, only forward and back. It is pretty smooth though. We do have a swivel in the ankles, so you can reposition those, and then the tail can move around. It cannot swivel, but it can move around all over the place. So it's not the worst thing in the world. For some reason I actually really quite like it. I just really wish they would have given it a longer tail. As far as a size goes, honestly, it feels like it's one of the smaller basic figures that we've had, because lengthwise you were looking at about 11.5 inches, or around 29 and like a half, almost, not quite, about 29.5 centimeters, maybe a little under. And then for a height, about 5.25 inches, or around 13.5 centimeters for a size comparison. There is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our basic Herrerasaurus. And you can see, again, easily the largest Herrerasaurus that we have had so far in the Mattel line. Definitely no other Herrerasaurus competes with this one when it comes to a size. Then we've also got the smaller mainline release of the Herrerasaurus, and you can see, again, pretty much the same colors, except for the original mainline release had the teeth painted, and a little bit more of that darker tone moving along the back of the body. But one thing that is interesting is when I had seen the images for this basic version, I actually thought it was the same figure as before, just obviously a lot larger. However, looking at it, there is definitely quite a bit of difference. The head sculpt is actually quite different. The arms look like they're probably the same, just obviously increased in size. The legs look different to me, definitely slightly different positioning as far as the legs, but sort of similar. And the tail is a little bit different. It's actually somehow shorter on the basic version than the original mainline version, and it's also sculpted a little bit differently. So it's not just the same figure and resized to make bigger. It's actually a bit different when it comes to the sculpt, but you can see a pretty impressive size difference when it comes to the original version compared to the basic version. And one final comparison, we have the recently released basic Concavinator next to the Herrerasaurus, and you can see the Concavinator is right there around in that, almost like standard size range for the basic figures, and you can see it is quite a bit larger than the Herrerasaurus. So even though this is the largest Herrerasaurus that we've had, I feel like there's a very good chance it's the smallest basic figure we've had so far. So this brand new Mattel Jurassic World basic Herrerasaurus is actually kind of fun. I really do like it. It's actually nicer sculpt-wise than the mainline release. I feel like the head sculpt looks a lot better. A lot of the fine detail looks a lot better. The only thing that stops this one from being one of my favorites when it comes to the Herrerasaurus is the short tail. The short tail is an absolute eyesore on the figure, and, you know, really could have improved it overall a lot if they had given it a longer tail. If it had a longer tail, I would say it might be the best Herrerasaurus, in my opinion, of course, that we've had in the Mattel line so far. Maybe, because the newer one that they had released that actually had lips and stuff, that one is easily the best so far, but this one could have been competition for it, I think, as far as like having a pretty nice looking appearance. But again, you have absolutely phenomenal sculpt and detail through the course of the figure. It is very nicely done, very impressive as a whole. The biggest setback for this one, as far as the figure goes outside of the short tail, is the paintwork, because you have very lackluster paintwork. Again, being a basic figure, it's kind of to be expected, but it still would have been nicer to have a little bit better paintwork on the figure, just because we have like the red tone of the body, and then you have that darker tone moving through, and that's really about it. It kind of looks like we might have a slight speckling here and there, but it's not super abundant. But again, outside of that and the eye color, you have nothing really going on paintwork wise. No painted nails, as always, no painted teeth. They do have a satin shine, but, you know, no actual paintwork. But you've got some okay articulation, pretty much all the standard articulation you usually have when it comes to a basic figure on top of everything. So I actually like this one quite a bit more than I liked the Concavinator and the Proceratosaurus that was released recently. But again, it definitely could have been improved a little bit. Regardless, if you are interested, like I said, you can check your local Kohl's, or you can check the link in the description that I will include straight to Big Bad Toy Store, where you can head on over there and place a pre-order for it right now. One way or another, make sure you do one of those two things, and also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.